Okay. I'm gonna steal their seat if they're not gonna be here.
Go for it.
I was like,
Take the
be
seat.
here soon.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna be a hot minute.
I'm stealing it.
Aww. I got your seat. Got a cushion in there.
All right. Youth protection training. Spotting and reporting grooming, child sex abuse, and child abuse in Utah.
Let's not cheer for this.
It's not an exciting topic, I know. I understand. But
It's not one that you say yippee right now.
Oh my God.
That's right. That's right.
honestly, it's a very important topic that we need to cover. We work with over 1,100 students in Davis County, and that's just like right immediately now. We have impacted tens of thousands of kids' lives, and we're in a unique position to spot and recognize some abuse. It's also a good reminder for us in general in employee relationships to keep things professional and appropriate so that we don't have to go through any fun,
Disciplinary
things. And yeah. So, introduction. Today, we are here to discuss a crucial topic, youth protection. As martial artists and staff in the state of Utah, we have a legal and ethical responsibility to create a safe and nurturing environment for our students. This includes being vigilant in spotting grooming, child sex abuse, and child abuse, and knowing how to report it appropriately. So we're going to dive in and talk about what they are. So grooming is the process by which an adult establishes a connection with a child to gain their trust and build an emotional bond before or for the purpose of sexual abuse or exploitation. It can happen both online and offline, and often involves manipulation, deception, and building a relationship of trust with the child and their family. Most child sex abuse happens with a known family member or family friend who has gained the trust, and half the time the parents are completely oblivious to it because the person seems super genuine and nice and awesome and trustworthy. Child sex abuse refers to any sexual activity or behavior involving a child that is perpetrated by an adult or older individual. This can include sexual assault, molestation, exploitation, exposure to pornography, or any other sexual act that is illegal or harmful to the child's well-being. And child abuse is a broader term that encompasses various forms of mistreatment or harm inflicted on a child, including physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse. Child abuse can have long-lasting and severe effects on a child's physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So we're going to go through a couple of different scenarios, kind of talk about it. Think about what you would do in these situations, and we'll kind of brainstorm how to appropriately handle them. So imagine you're teaching a class and you notice that one of your young students, Jake, has been acting withdrawn and anxious lately. He used to be enthusiastic about classes, but now seems disinterested. He avoids changing in the locker room. We don't have one, but and seems to be avoiding a particular instructor. So what do you do?
You bring up the topic to a manager and say, and mention how
Definitely, that's a really good first step rather than just confronting the kid or anything like that. Please talk to your manager, one of us, so that we can get eyes on the situation and kind of brainstorm what's going on.
If you are in that manager position at that point, I think going straight to the student isn't necessarily a great idea. At that point, we start with the parents. Say, have you noticed X and Y going on? Has he mentioned anything like that? And starting with the parents, because they're going to see it more than we do.
And it's going back just to the last topic we had about communicating, asking those clarifying questions. Hey, what's going on? I've noticed he's been especially withdrawn lately, and this seems to be out of character for him. Is there anything that we should be aware of?
And we want to make sure that all of the questions we ask are open-ended questions. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as we start saying names or as soon as we start saying things, it's back to that yes-no. Like, oh, I've noticed with so-and-so this is happening. It's a yes-no. And sometimes students don't know how to explain that properly, or even parents. So we ask open-ended questions. That way you get the full answer. And there's no suggestive answers, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, careful how you word it, because they can also take it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid leading questions.
Yes. Cannot lead them into suggesting that there's any type of abuse. You don't want to color the kid's experience and have them then start thinking that they need to agree with what you're saying.
I was also going to just add with that, avoid utilizing, particular, where this says avoiding particular instructors, avoid using that instructor's name. right? Because what you don't want to do is create that suggested moment. Because if there is a situation with a particular instructor, you don't want to give them that. See if they've noticed that as well. Because that'll just create that suggested moment of like, oh yeah, it is that person.
The thing that I think of, he says, it seems to be avoiding a particular instructor. Well, everyone's mind instantly goes to, oh my gosh, is that instructor like abusing this child? Well, what if that instructor just happens to look like someone who is abusing this child? Or what if that instructor reminds them of something that happened? Like, you don't get to decide who did what where because you said one or saw one thing one time. So, like everyone said, you need to be very careful to not assume what is occurring because you don't know what has happened in that child's long distant past or at home or at school either. You don't know where or what is going on, and you need to be careful just to ask about the well-being of the child.
And another part on that is we don't want to like go to the instructor and be like, hey, this kid's avoiding me, what's up?
Yeah.
If they haven't done anything wrong either, not even from the parent side of it or from the student side of it, but just like as an instructor to instructor, you're not like, dude, what's the matter with you? What'd you do to this kid?
Yeah.
And they're like, I didn't do
the
anything.
answer is likely they haven't done anything.
The other important thing, and Katie mentioned it, right? Asking the parents those open-ended questions, but also immediately getting leadership involved. Getting Jennifer, getting Caleb involved, because there is additional training, additional resources that they have access to, and things that they've seen and done that they, so that they can actually help out with those additional things.
And likely would mean we would come in and start observing what's going on. We need to know when that kid is there, watch that interaction, and we may have to switch the shift of the instructor while we are figuring out what's going on to see what's going on with that.
Right.
But
So
we're not going to be accusatory.
Jaden was right. You're going to talk to someone else, and more than one of us is going to know about this before anything happens, right?
Yeah. Even like for hourly employees, even for where I'm at, it's above our pay grade. Don't try and detective it out. Talk to the right people and let them detective it out.
Absolutely, please. All right, we went through that part. During the class, you notice that one of your students, Sarah, has become unusually quiet and withdrawn. She avoids eye contact, flinches when approached, and often comes to class with unexplained bruises. When you ask her about it, she becomes evasive and dismisses it as accidents. So what would you do in this situation?
This is where letting other people know becomes important, because if it's a one-time thing, things happen, people trip and fall, they're going to be withdrawn. But if it's consistent and we're writing it down consistently and letting people know consistently, then you start having a case for something legitimate is going on. Of course, you don't want that to be like, we wait 3 months, she has bruises for 3 months. But if it's like one class it happens, the next class it happens, okay, flags are starting to pop up. Third class, we know something's going on.
And this one can get tricky in involving the parents, because if it's not something that's happening at karate, we don't know if it's a bully at school. We don't know if it's the parents. So what do we do?
Take notes.
Absolutely. Document everything that you're seeing. Document your interactions with the student. Document what you've noticed and her behavior changes, because that's going to be crucial if it is something that is involving the parents.
Well, even like taking notes, and also just like because that can help the kid in the future.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think it's important. We talked a lot about communicating, but communicating with the right people. Don't communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate up. Communicate those things up.
Absolutely. When I go through onboard, I've taken all of you, I think, through the handbook at some point, and we get to you will be privy to some confidential information. This is part of that confidential information. We're not going to go talk to all the other parents in the dojo about, oh my gosh, did you see what's going on there? What have you noticed? You're not going to talk to each other. You don't take it to your coworkers about what's going on. Like Jake said, you've got to move it up the chain to someone who can actually do something about it.
And you can always call us.
Mm-hmm. Anytime.
Especially for something like this.
Like,
Please.
For anything. Like, if you guys ever have any questions, I want you guys to know that we are totally available. Jennifer, always.
Yep.
If you want to talk to Caleb, he'll answer your phone calls. He's not above that.
Unless I'm running a crane, and I will call you back.
Yes.
Hey, so let's just take this one step further. So it's happened. You're going on 2 months of fairly frequent physical injuries appearing on this child that clearly did not happen at the karate school from sparring. Now, what do you do? Braxton.
I don't know if it's jumping the gun, but CPS, Child Protective Services.
Yeah, and we're going to now take the notes that we have collected over the last couple of months, because what they need to see is that there is some kind of long-term issue. One kid with one fat lip one time. I mean, have you seen Patton? The kid doesn't have a day without a scab or a scar on something, right?
So do you guys know where typical bruises will happen on a child just from regular knees, elbows,
Hands,
forehead.
shins,
Pretty much everywhere.
But when you're seeing bruises in
your
those
eye,
other
or
areas,
split lip.
upper arm being here, even a forearm
Biceps,
like a
wrists.
grab, the places that they're not going to actually get those bruises from walking into a table, from tripping down the stairs, the things that kids do all the time. I mean, my kids have been so beat up before. Yes, I do beat my children in sparring at the dojo when it's appropriate. But
I'm not going to expect you guys to call Child Protective Services or
No, that is a
Child and Family Services.
bring it up the chain.
I will do that. Okay, if it's to that point, I'm going to do that. But I want to have some data to back that up. Hey, look, there's 3 different days over the last 6 weeks where this kid has come to class acting uncharacteristically scared. We can't even do bow staffs near the kid because they freak out, and they have bruises all over their face. It's time to talk to somebody.
My question for when we're writing things down and taking record of it is, where would we specifically like those?
Spark, just spark
On
note.
their Spark profile.
In their
I don't want
profile.
it hidden anywhere else.
Since it records the date.
Yeah,
You
it
put it on.
timestamps it. It's an official place to put it.
Whoever put
And
it
And
in
it's
there.
not something that someone can just get to without logging in.
Mhm.
So there's a password there.
And when you are documenting this, make sure that you are not putting emotions, your
Opinion.
thoughts, your opinions. Put factual things. I saw.
Susie came to class.
Yes.
There were bruises on both her upper arms. She had a split lip. Date, time.
Yep.
She acted very withdrawn in class. And
Mhm.
Don't put. I believe this is happening. I think this is happening.
yeah,
Because as soon as you start putting those opinions and those things, it all of a sudden becomes irrelevant.
your notes
to
aren't
those.
notes aren't worth anything.
So, and if you're
Okay.
not sure, reach out to
Have someone
Caleb.
else write the note with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this kind of just takes you through the steps that we talked about. You know, approach her privately and express
Okay.
concern about her behavior and injuries. That's just the, hey, I noticed that you seem to be a little bit withdrawn in class. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on? We're not accusing anyone of abuse at that point. You don't do that with the child. Listen carefully to her responses without judgment, and then document the details of the notes that we talked about. Reassure Sarah that she is not at fault and that you're there to support her, especially depending on what she tells you. Report the situation immediately to your supervisor, or if it seems like imminent danger or threat to this child, which that would just be weird to have them actually come into karate in that situation, but maybe, then you can call the hotline and follow up with authorities to continue to provide support to her. Question.
One final important thing to talk about regarding that is if Sarah comes up to you and says, "Hey, my parents are abusing me," then at that moment it is still go up the chain
Yes.
and do not above all else try and keep Sarah there without your manager knowing or whatever's going on, because at that moment we're going to have some really angry, really heated parents, and if they are abusing Sarah, then it's going to be a really, really bad situation for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
And you would be involved in kidnapping. So you're
Yes.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
So
accusing them of
Well,
something.
but I'm talking about at the end of class being like, oh yeah, wanted to preventing Sarah from going to
right.
maybe potentially her abusers. Bad news.
So
There-
call us immediately. Should that ever happen. Fortunately,
Yeah.
we haven't ever been in that situation.
Not everyone.
Most of you.
This one is going to be an internal matter here. You receive a report from another instructor that one of your students Michael has been spending a lot of time alone with a particular adult instructor outside of class. The instructor has been giving him special attention, buying him gifts, and inviting him to their home. What actions would you take?
To report that.
Yes,
guy
please call me.
immediately.
Uh-huh.
Reporting you.
It's not talk to every other instructor and spread gossip chain, but we would need to know immediately. Is it ever okay to invite any of our underage students to your home?
No.
No. Is it ever okay to have private text threads with any of our underage students?
No.
You have to have the parents looped in if you need to be communicating with those students. Do you buy them gifts?
Yeah, so for like teenage instructors, I have like a couple friends that are in those karate. Is that
That's
are we exempt from that?
different.
Right.
But you still need to be very careful.
Yeah.
Which is
20-year-old
why-
V cannot go hang out with 16-year-old friend.
Nope, not okay. Our underage employees, you can still have your friends that,
Oh, yeah.
that were your friends. That is totally fine. But in the handbook, there is no employee-student dating. That's just not okay. If you are a teenage instructor that is under the age of 18 and you've got a friend who happens to also take karate and you do want to date them, please talk to me. It's something that does have to be disclosed, and I will make sure you do not work in the dojo in which they attend classes. It just creates a different power
And that's
dynamic
happened
between you.
before, and
That
And
way-
it's totally
that way
fine.
We can protect you from something bad happening to you. Do you guys
Yep.
understand that? This isn't us trying to punish you.
No. But it's one of those
It's
things.
us trying to keep you from ever getting in trouble.
We're not going to let you teach them private lessons, especially alone, just so that we can keep any sort of conflict of interest out of here.
Okay, this is kind of a same thing, but not really. I've also had parents approach my senseis before and say, "Hey, will you come to my house and teach my kids private lessons?"
Yeah, the
That
answer is
a
no.
no-go.
Do you guys understand why that's not appropriate? Like what?
So when working at Mr. Burke's school, I was like 14, so I wasn't thinking, right? And a parent asked me to go to their house to teach their kid a private lesson, and it was all sorts of weird. And then they asked me to do it again, and I said, no, thank you. Because it's like, there's nothing good that's going to come from that, and there's no benefit that is gained from that you can't have at the dojo. And it's way safer for you, and it's way safer for you not potentially getting fired because we have cameras, and then you're safe, and you have another employee there versus this instructor went to my house and they did this thing, and then it's just you versus them, and we got to believe them.
Does that make sense?
And
You
it
lose
is-
all
it
the
gets
protection
messy.
that our business can provide. There's no liability coverage for you. We have a sexual harassment and abuse rider in our insurance, which means our insurance company will go to bat for you to protect you as my employee if you're doing things at my schools with other employees there. Like we have protection there. The cameras are a huge layer of protection for that. Like it's
The glass.
much harder to do something inappropriate, and my karate schools don't have lots of hallways and weird little dark corners on purpose. Okay, Clinton has that one corner, and that freaks me out. That there's one corner that the manager can't see at any given time. But there's like 500. I could go through 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. Please don't do anything off-site that we're not approved for. When we go to an elementary school, guess what we have provided the school district?
Certificate of
Our
insurance.
certificate of insurance. We're all background checked. We've walked through 57 hoops to make sure that you guys will never get accused of something. And if you do, we have multiple layers of protection to fight for you. And so if you ever break these rules, you're on your own. And unfortunately, I will be dismissing you immediately because I have no choice. Does that make sense? No matter how much I like you, no matter how good you are at your job, this is terrible news. And you've all heard my story about evolutionary and this happening, right? I'm going to Reader's Digest version for you. There's a school out in Syracuse where one of the instructors, a 19-year-old, started teaching private lessons to a 14-year-old. And this evolved into a romantic relationship between a 19 and a then 15-year-old. And that 19-year-old got to spend a wonderful period of time in prison. And all of the news anchors end up in front of this karate school, filming about the drama of a karate instructor sexually abusing a minor. And then it just kept going on because unfortunately the minor kept chasing this instructor, and it got terrible. It was horrible. Almost shut the entire business down. Okay, so this is my worst nightmare stuff. And I'm going to keep you guys so far away from doing any of this that this never happens.
That's why
Okay.
parents need to be there for private lessons.
I much prefer the parents stay for private lessons.
I leave because I trust you. So,
But there's
But we
also
still-
how many of you there?
but there's always
Always two.
2 or 3 or 4
Yes.
of you there. Okay?
Never ever have a private lesson where you're the only one in the dojo with those
Ever.
kids.
And if
Ever.
that's
Not
the case,
not even with each other, guys. Sorry.
Yep.
Not even with each other. Like, oof.
and we
So-
don't have the cameras to spy on you. We don't have glass so that we can watch everything you're doing. Because I don't care. I trust you guys. I don't trust other people in my dojos.
So that last scenario also kind of goes with employees, and employees are over 18 employees and are under 18 employees. We do allow employee dating, but we won't allow that. Just letting you know,
Sure.
that's not going to ever be a thing. There's a different power dynamic with you guys being coworkers, and especially if any of you are in any sort of management position, that's just not okay. So the steps to take: make sure you take the report seriously. Refrain from confronting the accused individual. You don't go to that instructor and say, "Hey, are you doing this?" You document the details, report any relevant information, and again, you contact your supervisor immediately. And then we will also advise the instructor who made the report to report the situation appropriately as needed. And of course, we will cooperate with authorities. And like Caleb said, yeah, if that happens, you will likely be put on immediate leave during the investigation and probably terminated. A parent of one of your students, Emily, expresses concerns about her sudden change in behavior. She used to be outgoing and confident, but lately she has been avoiding classes, becoming anxious, and showing signs of low self-esteem. The parent suspects emotional abuse from another student. We've had situations like this actually kind of happen, where we have students who won't come to class anymore because their bully is in that class with them, and they're getting bullied, whether it's on the mat and we are missing it, or it's happening at school and they end up in the same class together. So what do we do?
If possible, switch their classes.
Mhm.
And if not, then they don't ever start partnered with them, like opposite ends to math.
Yeah, make sure you're super vigilant of that and aware.
Before we can even do that, though, we do have to identify who it is.
Mhm.
So we need to have a really calm and mature conversation with both parents and student. And if the student is emotionally able, which we've had in the past where they aren't, but if the student is emotionally able to talk to us about who it is and what's going on and give us details, then at that point we can also have a conversation with the bully student, and then we can start splitting them up.
This one is almost a little easier to handle because typically it's not going to be a physical abuse situation. It usually is a bully and a bullyee situation where we're dealing with that. And we're just helping the other students kind of navigate.
How do you want a situation like this communicated amongst this team?
Right. So this one, it's going to be, the whole team does need to be aware of that, because if you're on the mat and you're teaching and you don't know that these two kids shouldn't be partnered together.
Talk to the manager of the school and or Jennifer, and
Mhm.
let's come up with a game plan.
Yeah.
Because remember, a lot of times a bully is a bully because there's a huge problem in their life,
Mhm.
and I want to help that kid too. I don't want it to be a soul crushing, you're a horrible human type situation for them either.
Probably means there's some other layer that we need
We
to
find typically
uncover.
the ones that are being very impolite or bullying in class are the ones who have home lives or
Mhm.
issues elsewhere that really need help. And so us immediately jumping on that child isn't like my preferred plan, because I want to see what we can do to help that child as well.
I also,
Sorry, but is that something like, hey guys, we know we've got the situation. I mean, at what point do we let?
We're going to talk about that one. So we've had something similar very recently, and it's just, hey, look, we have to have a new game plan for this kid.
Yeah.
He is disrespectful, A, B, C, D, E. This is the plan now for him. And then we will let every one of the instructors that trains with that kid know what we're trying to do to help A and B student so that both of them get what they need. And like I said, I would immediately try and switch classes, divide them, make them pick days, something like that.
we do themes of the month and bat chats all the time as well. If this happens in your school, I would highly recommend, I've had to do this before too, where you sit the entire class down for the next 2 or 3 weeks, not just that class, but every single class, and talk about how important it is to encourage each other in the dojo,
Supported.
and that we're friends, and that we're here for each other, and we're not supposed to put each other down, and having just good, like a good sportsmanship chat,
Mhm.
just being good teammates, and then having that be the expectation, and then calling out anybody, not just the particular individual, but calling out anybody that even sort of does that behavior for like 3-4 weeks, and then build the I've even seen it where some students will be like, hey man, that's not cool, right? And then having that come from their teammates instead of just an instructor,
The
it's,
peer
it's not
pressure
as like, it
corrects
doesn't
the
hurt as
behavior.
bad.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you got to
I don't know. This one's there's a whole scale of what could need to be done, right? So this one's we need to discuss it
So-
and have a plan.
These were some of the suggestions. Listen attentively and empathetically. That's a very important part. You've got to empathize with them, to the parents' concerns, without dismissing them. You can't say, no, you're crazy. That's not what happened. You've got to make them feel heard and validated. And then document the details of the parent's report and any relevant information. Discuss the situation with Emily privately and encourage her to share her feelings and experiences. Privately meaning with the parents. And then contact your supervisor and report the situation. Work with the parent and Emily to address the situation and provide appropriate support.
And take notes.
Take notes. Always document, document, document. So during a sparring session, you notice that two students, Alex and Jake, are constantly engaging in aggressive behavior towards each other, including taunting, name-calling, and physical aggression that goes beyond the normal bounds of martial arts training. How do you address that situation? Separate them.
Yeah, this one is an immediate. You need to stop what's going on and address the problem. Because if it's during the middle of class and you have that going on, if we silently dismiss it, then it's almost encouraging the behavior. If it's like hey, you guys need to stop what's going on. This is not okay, and then kind of meeting together so that way we can address it. That's going to make it go a lot faster in the progress.
If it was like in an actual class and it was time for sparring, so all the kids were pairing up, all that, I would probably just immediately call time, have them bow, shake hands, and find a new partner, just to get them away from each other. And then if they do try and pair back up, I would separate them immediately.
And we're going to actually dive into a lot of this in the next one, which is appropriately disciplining students. But
I think it's also important that after you do that, that you then subsequently have a conversation after
absolutely.
and just continually address it and make sure that there's some conversation around what behavior should look like on the mat.
Yeah.
And continually, if it, because I mean, if you don't address it and continually focus on it, they will go back to it.
Absolutely.
And I would just say, so I'm going to interrupt you.
Mhm.
So I would say that it's also appropriate if this is happening and other kids are very much watching, that you address it with the whole entire group. It's okay to publicly call out behavior that we don't want to see and then provide an alternate way of behaving for the whole class, right? That's where a mat chat or we're pause, everyone take a knee right now. We're going to talk about this kind of a situation first. And you can be a little more aggressive in your communication.
Yeah. When I was still like taking classes as a student, I was at Masters Club. I was sparring one of my good friends. Like I don't remember if it was specifically Carl, but we all know here that Carl and I are great friends. I think it was him, and we were giving each other crap, and Tabor pulled both of us aside, and this is a really easy conversation to have with students. They're in Masters Club, right? They're the ambassadors for martial arts, all the good things that it represents, and so he wasn't mad at us that we were being good friends and messing around with each other. He was mad that we're setting that standard for Masters Club, right? So an easy conversation is like, hey, you guys are in Masters Club. I want you to show them what good sparring is, what good sportsmanship is. And it's the same for you instructors, right? You guys wear blue gis and black belts and red gis and black belts, right? You set the standard for what martial arts can be. And so you got to be able to hold that standard for everybody who's going to watch.
Absolutely. And Michael?
I was actually going to say the exact same
Okay,
thing.
perfect.
I do it not just in Masters Club. I can do that for the basic class, and I do it on a regular basis because we always have our 7 to 12-year-old classes. We'll either have 5 and 6-year-olds off to the side, or we just have 5 and 6-year-olds, and they have to be an example to the younger kids. So on.
Yes. Encouraging them in a positive way to change their behavior to be better examples. So intervene immediately, exactly like you said, and separate them to ensure the safety of all the students. Document the details. Again, you've got to write notes. And if this is something that is happening frequently, note it. Even if it happened one time, probably put those notes in, because you never know which parent is going to come back to you and be like, so-and-so punched my kid too hard in the head and gave them a concussion, even though they probably didn't really get a concussion. And then they'll come back frustrated. And if you have those notes documented and can detail out that you did intervene, what steps you took, that'll be much better for you. Speak with them privately to address their behavior and explain the consequences of aggressive actions. Follow our disciplinary procedures, which we'll be going through shortly here, and impose appropriate consequences. Contact the parents of both students and let them know about it and discuss steps to prevention. That's also going to go a long way with the parents, so that they don't end up frustrated because their kid came home super upset that the sparring class was an absolute nightmare for them. That gives the parents reassurance that you saw what happened, you did take steps, and you're dealing with it.
What do you do when you have a parent that like tells you to address something? When you go over to check it out, it's really just two friends having a friendly competition.
Have a conversation with the kids still, because perception is a lot from the parents. They're watching something going on, and to them it looks completely different. So I would still talk to the
You can
kids.
say that to the kids. Hey, Carl, Caden, I know you're having fun. I know you like to sass each other. But how does that look to the other students, and how does that look to these parents who have a brand new kid trying this class, and you're over here? Does that make sense? Like, you can have that conversation with them, and they'll go, oh, okay. Like, you can explain that. Like, the perception of what is going on is as important as what is actually going on, right? And we don't want to be perceived as allowing bullying and taunting and stuff like that, because there might be a parent, and we've had this before, where they're ultra sensitive to things like that, and any of that behavior kind of triggers them. You don't want that to happen. Does that make sense? So you can address it and explain, hey, I know that you guys are good and you're having fun, but I don't think everyone else knows that, and it looks scary and intimidating, or it looks like you're bullying each other. I need you to stop, so
Let's
that
tone it
you
down.
don't scare other kids off or make the parents uncomfortable. That makes sense? If I explain that to you, you okay? He's like, oh, okay, all right, fine, I'll shut up.
Hope, and then Jaden.
Okay, so real fast. So we have this parent, so like their kid was Cammy, and she just can't get a hit. Like, we'll spar, and even if she gets hit a tiny bit, she loses her mind. And each and every time, like, the mom's like, she's getting the crap beat out of her. I'm like, I promise, she's not. But yeah. But then, like, the mom always takes me crap out, and she goes, like, this kid is beating up Cammy, and Cammy just like, and she's like 12. How old is she? 12, 11? And she just like cries about it. I'm like, dude, you're fine. Like, you barely got hit. And how do I explain that to the parent when the parent's like, my kiddo is getting beat up?
So,
Clarissa.
Tammy's mom told me last time I was there, and she had like a big meltdown. She told me that she like recently got like smashed in the face with a pole and like had to go and get dentist stuff done. And so her face is super sensitive from that. It was like a couple days before that. And so like the kid she was sparring with like lightly tapped her on the face, and then she had a meltdown is because her mouth is still sore from like a couple days ago. That's what it was.
But we've had this ever since she started. Like, this was months ago also. It's not just like that one instance.
I hope I would recommend that maybe you pull Cammy's mom and Cammy aside and just maybe recommend even potentially doing some private lessons around the sparring, because I know that was one of the things that really helped Amelia, and Amelia's dad is a huge advocate for that, because Amelia was very afraid of it. That's also something that several of our Sabriel, yeah. Their parents, or her parents, have also said that that's one of the things that she was afraid of. But we recommended, doing the private lessons, and that's some of the feedback that they also provided. And that's what my kids loved about the private lessons was, hey, wait, we can do sparring, and now because they've done it and they did the private lessons, they're more willing to do the sparring versus beforehand. So getting that experience where they're not getting their face pounded in from somebody that may have a little bit more experience is always a good thing.
Michael.
I did this one in team class this week because I have a girl that got a concussion, and anytime she gets hit in the head, she breaks down. So I told her, if you were building your way back up, you need to go and start off slow. You need to get used to the little bit of sparring. You can't just go head first and be sparring. So you can go and break down and say, let's break this down. we can go and do this movement and this movement. But you need to communicate with your partner about the fact that you need to do that. You cannot get hit in the face. You cannot get hit in the head. I'm not comfortable with this.
Pair them up with instructors so that they can maybe get comfortable to that. Brandon.
Well, and to just go on with the partnership, we need to make sure that what is being said is actually happening, or we need to reevaluate the session, because if every time she spars, mom is like, she's getting beat up, and I know she's with Whitney, and I know the fact that that's not happening, we need to make sure that you're sitting down with mom and you're walking her through what's happening when she spar.
And
So
why
mom-
you did what you did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I know because I paired her with Whitney specifically the last 3 classes. Like you're right. You need to.
And even then sit down with mom while they're sparring and say, okay,
And
no,
that's-
what
that's
you're saying,
what I
I
was
want you to
gonna say.
watch that hit. Did you see that? That's a
That's
totally
a really good
appropriate one. It's in the right spot. It didn't have too much
And then
power.
Also
Let's
talking
walk her
about
through
the
that.
goals of why we even spar
Right.
and what you want to do. Like, tell me, what is it that Cammy wants to do? Oh, I want her to be more confident.
Well, sparring's going to help
every
that.
time that she gets hit and she breaks down, if we stop the sparring match and let her take 5 minutes, that's not going to do her any good. I do want to make sure that she's safe. That's why I partnered with Whitney, and we are going to work together so she can be more confident because she's sparring. She might have hard times, but that's where the growth comes in. I need you to help me with this as well by supporting in that decision. You want to be more confident? Let me help you with that.
Jackson.
Talking about what Michael was saying in that same team class, I was taking that class and we were doing the rotational sparring and I sparred her and she did communicate to me, hey, I can't be hit in the head. And I was like, cool, thank you. And then
Excellent. Yeah, you empower them to have a voice.
I remember this one time where 2 kids were goofing off and they're having fun, but there's part of the drill where we're doing inner blocking, we're blocking a punch, and we're being soft about it. And one kid just goofed off a little much, and she caught her other friend right in the eye, and they both started crying because one's like, "I'm sorry, I hit you," and the other kid's crying because
That's always my
but they're friends, right?
That's always my
And I walk over and I'm like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Okay, cool." I mean, like, I took it as we're fine. It just happens. It was an accident. That kid quit because she went to mom and mom overreacted. If my kid had a bruise because she got punched at karate, how dare they? Granted, the mama's kind of a nut job, so whatever. But what I should have done was go call mom before
Yes.
the kid would have gone home.
Hey,
And go,
this
hey, this happened. It was an accident, and I think it would have gone better. But in the
Mhm.
moment, I was like, they're fine. They made out their friends. I didn't think much of it because in the moment it really wasn't a big problem. But if there is a bruise,
But
then
that kid made it out to be.
the
a
kid
Yep.
I got punched in the face, and then mom overreacted.
And as a parent, that's huge. If you can reach out to the parent and let them know what happened, what the situation was, it'll de-escalate everything way faster. Last
and we
comment.
need to make every opportunity an inspirational moment, because if we choose not to, it'll go the ladder. Because
Mhm.
if we take the step to call mom and say, hey, this happened at karate today, I'm actually so proud because after she got hit, she got right back into class and she was able to show me a lot of confidence and discipline by getting back into that. Mom's going to be like, that is so cool. And so, like that extra 1 minute we took because we chose to be inspirational could have saved a student.
And that shows the parent that you were aware of what was going on. Quickly over reporting protocol in the state of Utah, it's important to follow any legal reporting protocol when it comes to youth protection. We are mandated reporters, so we are required by law to report any suspicions or disclosures of child abuse or neglect to the Utah Division of Child and Family Services or law enforcement immediately, and failure to report can result in legal consequences. This does not mean at the first instance of any bruise you're calling the cops. That is not what that means, but please talk to us and we will take care of the reporting that needs to happen.
Do we have, like, as kids are moving up into sparring, a conversation with the parents, like, hey, just so you understand, they're doing sparring, they got sparring gear on, things are going to happen.
We really should add that to our intermediate one orientation.
Have that conversation.
Your new class orientation.
Right.
We have that. We could probably do a much better job of that. Right?
So a reminder, please document, and report and then follow up with the authorities as necessary. So there are some resources. This slideshow is going to appear in Trainual. It's going to live there. We're going to ask you every year to review this and take a quiz on it, and all new hires will also have to go through it. And that is youth protection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go get a sip of water. Go to the bathroom if you need to.